Hare Krishna. Good morning from Sri Mayapur, dear devotees. My name is Nanda Yashoda, and these are our daily adventures, almost daily, in Srimad Bhagavatam. So today we have a very special topic. We're going to speak about our third discussion of Uddhava meeting Nanda Maharaj. I think this is number 37 in our overall discussion about the meeting in Kurukshetra. So we'll begin with a few prayers. Narayanam namaskrityam naram sharanrotamam Devam saraswatyam vyasam tato jayam vadirayat Vedi ramayane shaiva Purane bharate tata Davante cha madhye cha hari sarvatra giyate Mukam karoti vachalam bangum lang gayate girim Yat kripa tamaham vande Shri Gurum dinataranam Paramananda madhavam Paramananda He Madhava Padunga Luchi Makaranda Se Makaranda Panakori Anande Bolo Hari Hari Harinka Name Vandavela Parikori De Chakadola Se Chakadolanka Paraye Manamo Rahu Nirantare Manamo Nirantare Rahu Ha Krishna Boli Jiva Jao Ha Krishna Boli Jao Jiva Moteu Dada Rada Dava Moteu Dada Rada Dava Moteu Dada Rada Dava Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The Vedic literatures have a great science about omens. And every little thing that happens when you start something, you finish, you even tell something. So it's very correct, I think, today. We begin chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And there's two types of Bhagavats. There's a Grantha Bhagavat and there's a devotee Bhagavat. Just at the time when so many special devotee Bhagavats come to the door. It's very auspicious, isn't it? So, good morning, dear devotees. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam and some different commentaries. This is session number 37 on our topic, Meeting in Kurukshetra. And this is our third session. And I think we're going to have at least maybe 2 or 3 more about Uddhava meeting Nanda Maharaj. Gora Draganya Gana Gota Goloruharam Goranga Gudachama Gopyada Kopa Briksham Gopala Gadaratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namami. So before we look forward, let's look back a little bit. Some of our last few sessions we were hearing about how Krishna sent Uddhava to Vrindavan with a message of love. Krishna gave him an order. Krishna told him what to say. And Krishna even gave him his own dress. Sometimes people say, Prabhuji, it was such a nice class. But who does the credit really go to? Who gave the order? Gurudev gave us an order. Okay. What is the substance of the class? That also comes from Gurudev. also doesn't belong to us. And then you may say there's some inspiration. Where does the inspiration come from? It also comes from Gurudev. So if we try to say it belongs to me, then we're a great rascal. So Uddhava didn't have that kind of problem. He was going as Krishna's representative. And so much so that the trees and cows of Vrindavan, when they saw him, they saw Krishna. This is Saksha Duridvin, Asta Masta Shastra. That personality is a manifestation of Krishna. And Jiva Goswami and Gopal Champu says that that Uddhava had no problem having anything to eat. No Govinda's restaurant, but those trees were there. And they were so happy to see Uddhava, seeing Krishna. They were giving so many fruits. And then Uddhava went to meet Nanda Maharaj, and we spoke something about the beautiful etiquette between them. Although I don't think anybody was thinking, what is the proper etiquette in this situation? As we mentioned, it's not like somebody pulled down the Manasamhita or some Smriti Shastras, let me look through what am I supposed to do in this situation. It was just natural. But we learned from them how to behave with older Vaishnavas, how to behave with younger Vaishnavas. And so then we heard about how Nanda Maharaj, he greeted Uddhava so nicely. He didn't personally wash his feet because Uddhava would have freaked out. He had his servant, who was like a part of Nanda Maharaj, wash his feet. And then they gave some paramana, some very nice sweet rice to Uddhava. And after all that, then Nanda Maharaj began to ask questions. What's foremost in his mind? He's only thinking of Krishna. But he doesn't ask about Krishna. The first thing he asks about is Vasudeva and Devaki. How are the residents in Mathura? And as we mentioned in some previous sessions, this is Parokshavad. He's concealing what his real question is. And indirectly he's saying to Uddhava that you're Subhagya, you're very, very fortunate because you're staying there in Mathura with Krishna, but Ami Durbhagya. We're very, very unfortunate because we don't get to see Krishna. Krishna doesn't care about us anymore. So I want to continue. This is from the 46th chapter of the 10th canto, which speaks about Uddhava's arrival in Vrindavan. It's 2 chapters that speak about Uddhava's message to the Brijbasis. That's chapter 46 and 47. 47 is also known as the Brahmara Gita. And I'm not sure how much we'll definitely get into that some. I'm not sure how deeply, because each and every one of these verses, Prati Shloki, Prati Akshri, Nanaktakori, there's unlimited meaning for every verse. And what to speak of every verse, even every syllable, Akshara, there's unlimited meanings. So, reading from 46th chapter, the 10th canto, text number 22. Sarich Chaila Vanodeshan Mukunda Parabhushitan Akridan Ikshamananam Mano Yati Atmanam. Excuse me, Tat Atmatam. So this is Nanda Maharaj speaking to Uddhava. He says, when we see the places where Mukunda enjoyed his pastimes, the rivers, the hills, the forests, he decorated with his feet, our minds become totally absorbed in him. So this is Udipana. Udipana, sometimes mispronounced as Udipan. Udipana means something which reminds us of Krishna. And this is why landscape architecture is very important. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was so much into landscape architecture. He grew so many trees and plants. And not just Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but Rupa and Sanatan and Ramakeli. They created the forests of Vrindavan. And still you go there today, there's a Radha Kund, Shama Kund, Lalita Kund, and kunds of all the Ashtamanjaris. They created a Vrindavan. And that creation of the Vrindavan became Vrindavan because of the bhajan they did there. So it's very, very important. Vrindavan is not concrete. And whatever, as Radha Govinda Maharaj once said to someone, he was saying, Maharaj, Vrindavan is not the same Sahadeva Prabhu, when did you first go to Vrindavan? 1976.
There was nothing between Krishna Balaram Mandir and the marketplace there. There was nothing.
There's nothing between Krishna Balaram Mandir and the marketplace.
Yeah.
Lloyd Bazaar.
Lloyd Bazaar. There was.
My God. Even I know when I first went like 25 years ago or something, it was completely different. Things change. But as someone complained once to Radha Govinda Maharaj, was my point, they said, Maharaj, now Vrindavan is disappearing and the roads and so much confusion and noise and things. And Radha Govinda Maharaj said very beautifully, he said that even if Vrindavan becomes Delhi, it's still Vrindavan. And Shita Pata, we don't see it with our eyes that have a big headache. One devotee, I'm getting off track a little bit, but one devotee, his father, I heard the story, he was a mayor of a small town somewhere in South America, maybe Brazil or I don't know, someplace in South America. And his father, the son convinced the father to come to Vrindavan. The father's not a devotee. And the son's telling him, this is the most wonderful spiritual place, and this and this. So the father comes to Vrindavan. And after about a half a day of walking around in Vrindavan, he had a bad experience. He was very disgusted. And he told his son, he said, the public toilets in our town in South America are cleaner than the streets in this place. So he's not seeing Nitya Vrindavan, and he's not having Shitapata Darshan. He's not seeing Vrindavan through the ears. He's just seeing it with the eyes. And if you just see it with the eyes, you get a big headache. I heard another story. Kunti Mati, Prabhupada's disciple, who used to have a restaurant in Seattle when I was president there, told us a story that there was one devotee, they saved up money, and she came to India to go to Vrindavan and go to Mayapur. I mean, it's so nice. They landed in the Calcutta airport, Calcutta, whatever. Landed, and she got off the plane, walked a little ways, looked around, turned around and got back on the plane. And went back to America. Maybe not exactly like that. I don't know if the airlines would allow that, but something like that anyway. So there's this problem. We have to see. And we have to see Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena. We have to see with the eyes of love. For that little boy, his mother is the most beautiful, wonderful person in the world. But she may have scars on her face, and she may be big and fat, but she's the most beautiful person in the world. We see through the eyes of love. And so here, Nanda Maharaj is telling Uddhava that we have this problem. Part of our problem is Vrindavan. We're staying here in this place, and wherever we see, wherever we walk, we see the rivers and the forests, things. We remember Krishna. Srila Prabhupada wanted devotees to make Vrindavan villages. But a Vrindavan village doesn't just mean you make a 20-story skyscraper building with an elevator that breaks every other day, and people stay and the toilets don't work right, and the water doesn't work, and electricity doesn't work. That's not Vrindavan. That's hell. But Vrindavan, you may have some buildings, but you have to have trees and flowers and gardens. Then it's Vrindavan. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the Sarita Darshani, and Jiva Goswami in his Laghu Vaishnava Toshini describe a conversation between Nanda Maharaj and Uddhava. So this verse we read, this text 22, was spoken by Nanda Maharaj, and he's saying the trees and the forests and the rivers, everything reminds us of Krishna. Then Uddhava tells Nanda Maharaj, okay, if that's the problem, then what are you staying at home so much for? You're feeling all this separation. So Krishna's too much on your mind. This is the problem. Now, if you just go get a job, just go to work, go to the office. Nanda Maharaj doesn't go to the office. But you just go to work, And then you'll forget about Krishna and everything will be okay. And Nanda Maharaj answers that with this verse. He says, no, that's not going to solve our problems either. Because if we go outside, it becomes even worse. The bridge bosses, they're not sweeping, they're not cleaning, they're not cooking for themselves. They're not even going outside because it's too depressing. Because if we go outside and we see the forests and the rivers and everything, it becomes even worse. So this reminds me of one verse from the 82nd chapter of the 10th canto. Now we're looking way ahead. The 82nd chapter of the 10th canto is a meeting in Kurukshetra, which is what we're supposed to be talking about, but we're caught up with so many different things, preliminary things. And this one verse is the only verse in that chapter which is spoken by the gopis to Krishna. It's amazing. They haven't seen Krishna in such a long time, and they only have one verse to say. One commentary that we read in the Bhagavatam described that they had so many things to say. They had volumes and volumes, encyclopedias of things to say to Krishna. But their words were so full of pain that Shukadev Goswami, who's a great devotee of Srimati Radharani, Shukadev Goswami couldn't tolerate repeating it. And so he only gave one verse. And that same verse, to go even beyond meeting in Kurukshetra to our final discussion we're going to have, we're in the back looking ahead now, that meeting in Kurukshetra also indicates the pastimes of Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri. And the same verse, it's a good chance, the same verse which is spoken by the gopis to Krishna in Kurukshetra was again recited by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri, in front of the Rath Yatra cart of Lord Jagannath. And what did they say? Ahushchate nalina naba padara vindam Yogeshwarai hridhi chincha magada bodhai Samsara kupa patitotara navalambam Geham jusam api manasyudiyat sadanaha. The gopis are speaking to Krishna, and this verse is full of parokshabad. There's 3 or 4 different meanings. We won't go that deep into it today, but later on we'll speak more about it. On one level, they're telling Krishna, they're offering prayers to him. Ahushchate nalina nava padara vindam. You're Bhagavan, you're God. From your navel comes Lord Brahma. Now the gopis generally don't offer so many prayers to Krishna. Sometimes when they're feeling separation. Now what does this mean? They're addressing Krishna's God. What indirectly our acharyas are saying, what the gopis are speaking to Krishna is that, oh, please excuse us, please accept our humble obeisances. Now you've become a big man. You went to the big city, and now you've become God. And everybody worships you. Do you still remember us? You sent that fellow to us. What was his name? Uddhava. Yes, you sent that Uddhava to us. And he started preaching Gyan to us, some Brahma Gyan, some information. We can't do that. So the gopis are saying that the literal meaning is Ahushchate nalina nava padada vinda. Please accept our obeisances, you're Bhagavan. Yogeshwarai hridhi vichincha magada bodhai. That you're that personality who the greatest of yogis and learned scholars are meditating on. Samsara kupa. But who are we? We're fallen in the dark well, samsara kupa, of family life. Patitara avalambam. Geham jusamapina manat yudeyasiyana. We're just ordinary persons. Your lotus feet are everything. So another meaning is the gopis are saying that please accept our obeisances. Now you're a big man. You're God. Do you still remember your mother? Do you still remember your father? Do you still remember Vrindavan? And you sent that fellow, that Uddhava, to us. And he started telling us that we should meditate on you. We can't meditate on you. Yogis can meditate on you. We can't meditate on you. Huh? Samsara kupa patitot taranavalam. We're so fallen in the dark well of family. What is that dark well of family life? That's being a Brijbasi. How is that a dark well of family life? We can't meditate on you because to meditate on you, you have to be shanti, you have to be peaceful. And we're not peaceful at all. We're completely disturbed all the time. Because we can't stop thinking about you. Because we're fallen, we're Brijbasis. And this is the fallen nature of the Brijbasis. They can't, they're not so elevated enough to do meditation, to think of you. They just can't stop thinking about you. And this basically is the same thing which Nanda Maharaj here in this 22nd verse of the 46th chapter, the 10th canto, is telling Uddhava. Okay, Uddhava, you're telling me we should go outside and forget about Krishna, wander around, get some fresh air, take a bath in Jamuna, have a good time, but take care of the cows, get your mind off. It doesn't work. When we see the cows, we remember Krishna taking care of the cows. When we see the Jamuna, we remember Krishna. When we see the sand on the bank of the Jamuna, we see Krishna's footprints. When we see the forest, we remember Krishna. Everywhere we go, it reminds us of Krishna. Better, Uddhava, that we just stay here inside our house and we don't clean. It's bona fide. We don't clean anything. We just stay here. Nanda Yashoda in Vrindavan Lilamrita describes the words of Nanda Maharaj. Nadiyadri Pradeshari Tatpada Bhushita Kridastali Deki Mana Hoya Tadatmata Bolo. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare. He said that when we see the rivers and mountains and all the places of Krishna's pastimes, our minds become agitated. It makes it worse. What happens at that time? Rama Krishna Donha Kare Pailama Jaina Emata Gyana Hoy Katana Katana Bolo. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare. Nanda Yashoda Goswami explains that Nanda Maharaj says something very, very deep, which I'm not planning on explaining today. It's coming up in a later session. He says that when we're wandering around in this forest, something happens. Rama Krishna Donha Kari Payulumajina E Mata Gyan. E Mata Gyan. It seems like Katana Katana, it seems like we've gotten Krishna and Balaram. We've recovered them. But he's saying, E Mata Gyan. It's wrong. It's just a spurti. It's just our imagination. It's just some information, and we don't accept it. So later on, to look a little bit ahead, not a long way ahead, we did a minute ago, but a little way ahead, there's 3 types of love in Braj. I won't go into we mentioned something about this a few sessions ago. I won't go much more detail than that now, but one category of love is that of Nanda Maharaj, Nanda Yashoda, and the gopis of Vrindavan. It's utkanta praying. They're always hankering very intensely to see Krishna. And the nature of their love is so paradoxical. You know the word paradoxical? You do? Yeah. So
They're the same word.
Acha. ¿En español?
Paradisíaco.
Sí, paradisíaco.
Paradisíaco.
It's so paradoxical that when they have a spurti and they see Krishna, they don't believe in it. But when they see Krishna, they also don't believe it. It's not real. I'm just dreaming. This can't be real. In their separation, they're seeing Krishna and they believe that's real. But when Krishna actually comes, they think it's not real. That's the nature of their love. And so the message that Uddhava has, that he's carrying for the Brijbasis, there's no message for the cows. Krishna doesn't love the cows. He loves the cows so much. No message to the cows, no message to the trees. He also loves the trees so much. There's no message to the cowherd boys. The only message that's given is to the gopis and for Krishna's parents. Because the cows and the trees, they're so simple. When they have a spurti, they think it's real. And they're peaceful. They're satisfied with that. It's good enough for them. And the boys, they're so simple. They've heard Krishna promised he's our drug, he's our good buddy. That's the nature of their friendship with Krishna. They think Krishna's going to return any day, definitely. But Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj and the gopis, they don't really believe it. And so the message is for them. In the 23rd verse, Shukadeva Goswami tells Maharaj Parikshit in the 46th chapter, Manye Krishnam cha Ramam cha prapta iha sarotamo sarana mat artaya gargasya vachanam yutam. In my opinion, this is Nanda Maharaj speaking to Uddhava, in my opinion, Krishna and Balaram, Manye means in his mind, Manye Krishna Charamam Cha, Prata Iha Surotama. They must be Surotama. They must be demigods. And they've come to this planet just to fulfill some mission of the demigods. This was told to us by Garga Muni. Because Nanda Maharaj now is setting the stage for the next part of the discussion. And we look deeply into the consciousness, into the heart of Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda. And they don't, Hare Krishna, would you please come? They don't see, I can't catch you up. I can't repeat what we've just gone over, Prabhuji. I'm sorry. There's too many things today. It's too bad. Shraddha's here. Hare Krishna. Nice to see Shraddha from San Jose.
Wow.
So now we're setting the stage for the next part of the discussion. And we're going to see the deep heart of Nanda Maharaj and the madness of love of Nanda and Yashoda. And although they were told many times in different ways that Krishna is Bhagavan, Krishna is God, sometimes the boys, they come back from herding the cows with Krishna and Balaram, and they tell Mother Yashoda, it was an amazing thing today. There was this huge duck demon, Bakasura, and he attacked Krishna and he ate Krishna up, and we were all terrified, and then Krishna became really hot or something, and the great duck demon spit him out, and Krishna then split him in two pieces. And it was really awesome. Boys, they liked it. And then we were coming home, and an amazing thing happened. There was this guy in the sky riding on an elephant. I've never seen anybody riding on an elephant in the sky, and he had eyes all over his body. And he was offering prayers to Gopal, to Kanu, and they were throwing flowers down. And there's another guy who was riding on a swan. We've never seen such a big swan. He had 4 heads. He was also offering prayers. And there was another guy, I don't know how in the world he was flying in the air, but he was riding on a bull. And he had 5 heads, and he had ashes all over his body and bones and things, and he was also offering prayers. And they were telling that Krishna is Bhagavan. When Mother Yashoda hears that, what happens? See, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita describes that Aishvarya Priti Sankuchita, that when there's Aishvarya or knowledge of someone's greatness and opulence, it makes love shrink. I'll give you an example. You meet a guy in a bar. I hope you're not going to bars, but you meet a guy in a bar in Seattle, Washington. Right? And he's a really nice guy, and you hit it off really good, and you're buddy-buddy, and you're talking. And then later you find out that guy is actually Bill Gates. He's like maybe the number 2 richest man in the world today. And it's a true kind of thing. It's possible. Bill Gates, his wife gives donations sometimes to our temple in Sammamish there. And Bill Gates sometimes, although he's the richest guy in the world, He has a private basketball court in the Seattle, I don't know what we call those guys, the basketball team, the local big team. They come and play for him privately. He's got whatever he wants. But he's lacking one thing: friends. There's no shortage of people who want to talk to him. But everybody's like, hey, Bill, remember me from kindergarten? Can I borrow some money from you? And everybody just loves him for his money. So sometimes feeling lonely, he puts on a hat, maybe a little fake mustache or something, and he goes out to the bars or whatever to make some friends. So you can make friends with such a person, but then you find out what his real situation is, and then Aishvarya Priti Sankuchita. Your friendship becomes shrunken. That's the general situation. But it's not the case for Nanda Yashoda. And it's not the case for the Brijbasis, looking ahead now, again, way ahead, in Kurukshetra. That opulence there in Kurukshetra, the opulence in Braj, when some opulence is shown, it doesn't make the love shrink, it increases it. And so when the boys tell Mother Yashoda, they were all these guys, it was Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva and Indra, and they were offering prayers to your Gopal, and they're saying that he's God. When Mother Yashoda hears it, she says, really? My Gopal, he's God. Isn't that sweet? It's so nice. And then later she forgets all about that, because her love is so very, very intense. So here, Nanda Maharaj, he's telling Uddhava that we think that Krishna and Balaram must be some kind of demigods who came here because they did all these amazing things. Nobody could kill that duck demon like that, and that giant snake, and dance on Kaliya's hoods, and hold up Govardhan Hill, and kill Putin as a baby, and do all these amazing things that he did. Unless he's a demigod, right? He must be a demigod. They overlook this idea that Krishna is Bhagavan. So Nanda Maharaj, he's remembering Krishna's powers. Why is he doing this? Jiva Goswami in Laghu Vaishnava Toshan, he says it's very deliberate. Because in the previous verse, when he spoke about when we walk around in the forest and we see the cows and we see the rivers, we try, because Uddhava is telling Nanda Maharaj, the problem is you're just stuck here in the house and you're thinking about Krishna. So you should go outside, get some fresh air, think about something else, do some work, take care of the cows. And Nanda says it's worse. When we go outside, then we can't stop thinking of Krishna. What happens at that time, Nanda Maharaj is remembering the Madhur Jamoy Leela, with the very sweet pastimes of Krishna. And his mind's becoming very, very disturbed. And just as we spoke in a few sessions ago, one of the reasons why Nanda Maharaj started off with his questions to Uddhava by asking about the situation of Vasudeva. He wants to ask about Krishna, but he asks about Vasudeva because several reasons, but one reason is because he knows if I start asking about Krishna, my voice is going to become choked up, and I'm going to start crying and weeping, and I won't be able to speak. So to control himself, he starts off by asking about Vasudeva. And now the conversation's going a little further, and Uddhava is telling Nanda Maharaj, you got to get out of the house. And no, that'll make it worse. And again, he remembers the sweetness of Krishna. And so then to control himself, Jiva Goswami says, Nanda Maharaj is trying to cover over the sweetness of Krishna in his mind. Let me think about some philosophy that'll help. It'll make it better. And so he starts thinking about Krishna's powers. Because he's thinking also, Jiva Goswami says that if he starts thinking about Krishna's sweetness, then who knows? Krishna might just manifest before me, and it's going to make it really, really hard for me then. Or he says he's speaking about Krishna's powers with a desire to glorify him. And Jiva Goswami says it's very significant. It's as a result of their separation. So looking back at this verse we quoted from the 82nd chapter of the 10th canto, Hushchate Nalinanaba Padada, the only verse spoken by the gopis to Krishna at Kurukshetra. There's several meanings. We gave one meaning, but another meaning is there also that the gopis, they're actually offering prayers to Krishna as Bhagavan. How is that? Because in their separation, their dainyabhav, their humility has increased. And we see that same humility, the same mood, Radha Bhava Dyuti Suvalitam Nomi Krishna Sarupam, when Krishna becomes Mahaprabhu, and he's in the mood of Radharani. The same mood is there, the same type of humility. I have no love, better I die. My Guru Maharaj used to say, and we'll come to this I think later, that Mahaprabhu's bhajan is a desire for death. That's because that's the mood of the gopis, and that's the feeling in separation. And that's this Utkanta prem. 3 types of prem in Braj are speaking about this. Utkanta prem is possessed by Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda, and possessed by the gopis. And in that Utkanta prem, as we were hearing in some previous sessions, as Nanda Maharaj is saying, better we die. We can't live without Krishna. This is their feeling. So Nanda Maharaj is speaking like this out of separation. And he's also saying that to Uddhava that I think these 2 boys, they're equal to Narayan. And they've made their appearance in my house. This is what Nanda Maharaj is thinking. So I want to jump ahead now a few verses to text number 26. And Nanda Maharaj is still speaking to Uddhava. Pralambo denuko rishtas, trinavarto bukadaya, daitya sura sura jito hatta, yene halilaya. Here in Vrindavan, so many demons came. All the Hall of Fame demons. Pralambasura, Dhenukasura, Ristasura, Trinavarta, Bakasura, all these different daityas, they came. And Krishna and Balaram, they defeated them. And Sukadeva Goswami, describing Nanda Maharaj's words, he says, Daitya, the demons, then he says, Sura, Sura, Jito. Jito means a defeat. Sura, Sura. What's that mean? The Asuras, that's the demons, okay, we understand that. Jita, Krishna defeats the demons, but he says Asuras also. What does that mean? That's referring to Lord Brahma. That's referring to Indra. That's referring to, what's his name? Varuna. Who all 3, they didn't recognize Krishna's position or Nanda Maharaj's position in the case of Varuna. And Indra sent the Samvartic clouds. Nanda Maharaj, Lord Brahma, kidnapped the boys and calves. So Sura Sura Jito, that here, Krishna, he defeated not just the demons, that's pretty easy in comparison, but he also defeated Lord Brahma. That's huge. And Indra, Yeneha Lilaya. And Lilaya, it was just a pastime for him. He was just having fun. Then in text 27, Sukadeva Goswami continues about the position of Nanda Maharaj. He says, Iti samsmitya Nanda Krishna Nurakti Atyukanto Bhavet Tushnim Prema Prasara Vibhala. So there's this phrase, Utkanta, Atyukanta. So much Utkanta. And in a previous verse, the 6th verse of this chapter, we mentioned these 3 types of love in Braj, and we're going to go on later when we speak about the love of the gopis, as we mentioned something today, and how Uddhava's message was only for Nanda Maharaj, Mother Yashoda, and the gopis. It's not for the cowherd boys, it's not for the cows, it's not for the trees, because they get their message in another way. But this phrase comes here, Jiva Goswami's taken this, he looked ahead, ati utkanta, it's very much utkanta. So he says that iti samsmitya samsmitya. Samsmitya means to remember. Samsmitya samsmitya, remembering again and again. Nanda Krishna Rakta Di. Nanda Maharaj remembering Krishna in a very, very intense way. Over and over again, remembering Krishna. Ati utkanta. He becomes disturbed in a very, very intense way. And then Nanda Maharaj, he becomes quiet, overcome with the strength of his love. Finally, he can't say anything more. So I want to stop here today. I have a dentist appointment, a heavy dentist appointment today at 10 o'clock, and I have to take breakfast before then, and I'd like to have our discussion before then. So a number of devotees online have made comments. Let me just go back. If anybody has any reflections, either physically present here, you can collect them in your mind right now, or else online we'll see. You know who was online? It was Shraddha from a place called San Jose. You've heard of that place before? Okay, we have the great Madhupati Prabhu from a place called Buddha, from a place called Hungary, and Barbara Veda Wolf, Hare Krishna, nice to see you. Brenda Sundar, she says, my obeisances to all the devotees there, Hare Krishna. She's from Denver, Colorado. And then we've got straight from North Carolina, there's Uddhava Rasagya, she's offering her pranams. Bhuvan Chandra, nice to see you. Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, my pranams. And Yadu Prabhu, Hare Krishna, nice to see you. Chaitanya Charan says, Dandavat pranams. Natalia from Estonia, or maybe last time she was in St. Petersburg. Okay. And Mahendra Prabhu offers his pranams. And there's someone named Brajabani and Kaveri. Kaveri's here. Wow. Kaveri straight from Boston. Hare Krishna. And okay, Ujjwala Rasagya Mataji has a comment, or maybe it's a question. Let me just see if I can show. Okay, she says, Uddhava didn't have this kind of, quote, problem. Thank you for saying that it is a problem and a disease to claim credit as one's own when it is simply and entirely Gurudev. So for those of you who are a little late this morning, in the beginning of our discussion, we talked about the message that Uddhava was carrying from Krishna, and how he didn't consider himself to be the owner of that message, and how in a similar way, when we had some success, and we gave examples, someone says, wow, that was a great class. Then we said, no, I was instructed by someone else to do this class. And the credit goes to him. That's my Gurudev, my Param Gurudev. They gave us this instruction. And then somebody says, but you spoke so many nice things. Yes, we spoke many nice things. Those also don't belong to me. We heard these things from our Gurudev in the previous acharyas. But you have such nice inspirations, the way you spoke it. Yes, that's also nice, but that inspiration also comes from our Gurudev. And so in that way, none of it belongs to us. And we see this in the case of Uddhava. He's Krishna's qualified representative because he doesn't have this problem, this disease, to try to claim credit on his own. So Ujjwala Rasagya Mataji should like that, okay? And Shraddha's here. She says, please accept my respectful obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Shraddha. How can we have life without Shraddha? We're just waiting for Shraddha to come back to Jagannath Puri and organize the yatra there. And Vaishnavi, Bina, Dalios is watching. Hare Krishna, nice to see you. And Lisa, and who else is here? Sanjay, Hare Krishna, Shamananda Prabhu, my pranams. Vaishnavi Bina has some comment here. She says, please accept my obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Sri Sri Gurum Gurum. That's a good thing to say. Hare Krishna. And Sanjay also says, Hare Krishna, Dandavat pranams. And Stella, Hare Krishna, pranams. And Kaveri, thank you so much. And Madhupati Prabhu, this is his comment. He says, you can feel the real Vrindavan still when you circumambulate Govardhan Hill. You can feel the real Vrindavan still when you go to New Brajadam and you hear Shivaram Maharaj speaking about Vrindavan. Or when you hear Sachinanda Maharaj speaking about Vrindavan, or when you hear Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj or some wonderful Vaisheshik, when you hear them speaking about Vrindavan, you just close your eyes and you're in Vrindavan. Huh? Amsumati is here also. Hare Krishna. Is Amsumati in where's she at now? In Moscow. Oh my God, it's too cold. And Chaturika Saki is also there. Ujjwala Rasagya Mataji, she says, I shall accept all the praise. Good for you. Just to hand it over to my Gurudev with gratitude. Yes, that's our mood. When someone comes and says, man, that was the best. That was the best prasadam I've ever had. You say, yeah, that's right. You should glorify it more. Give more glorification. And people say, what are you, crazy or something? You're supposed to be a devotee. You're supposed to be humble. No, it's not for me. because Gurudev told me to cook this. Gurudev told me how to cook this. Gurudev gave me the inspiration. Maybe even Gurudev sent me the vegetables and things to cook with. So it doesn't belong to me. So you should glorify it even more. And my job is just to pass it on. That's my job. Okay. Anybody here physically have any reflections or comments or anything? Okay, let me fix up everything. We're also technical here. Right? Change the microphone. You speak really loud there, please.
Prabhu, is Uddipana only like regarding the landscape architecture, or like what is it like practically? Like?
Well, that Uddipana means many things. That Uddipana also includes the Brijbasis themselves. That Uddipana also includes their homes. That Uddipana includes the memories of Krishna. That Uddipana includes when they see a peacock feather on the ground. That Uddipana may include the weather. When there's a big storm comes and they remember, this reminds me of the Samvarti cloud. It's not quite as bad as that. But it reminds me of that. Or the sunshine reminds them of the summertime when Krishna is herding the cows. So everything reminds them. And this is the treasure which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has brought us. And to understand this treasure, we have to understand the greatest mystery of Srimad Bhagavatam. That mystery, before the advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates, the 6 Goswamis, no one could understand it. And what is that mystery? Greatest mystery of the Bhagavatam. How is it that Krishna left Vrindavan? If he really loves the Brijbasis, if their love, as we would say in America, is the real deal, if it's really genuine love, how can he leave them? And this is the subject of Alita Madhav. This is the subject of Brihad Bhagavatamrita. This is the subject of Mukta Charit, a little indirectly. This is the subject of so many of our Goswami literatures to help us to understand the significance and the purport of that pastime, and to help us to understand what it is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is coming to give. He's coming to give us Krishna, and we see Krishna directly in the kirtan of our sampradaya, in the book distribution that we do, in the preaching that we do, because we're associating with Krishna directly, just as Uddhava is associating with Krishna, and just as the trees and cows of Vrindavan, when they see Uddhava, they see Krishna, because he's wearing the prasadam cloth of Krishna, and more importantly, because he's carrying the message of Krishna. They directly see Krishna, and we're being given an opportunity to enter into that kirtan, which is Uddhava's doing, and Uddhava's later hearing. We'll find out in the 47th chapter of the 10th canto, in the Brahma Gita, where he's hearing the mad talks of the gopis, and then he takes that kirtan and goes and repeats it. He extends that kirtan to Krishna, and then that kirtan goes to Dwarka, and then later the kirtan goes to Kurukshetra, and then later it goes to Jagannath Puri, and much later that kirtan goes to the whole planet, through the Vaya meeting, first to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and then through Srila Prabhupada. Is that okay? Anybody, Prabhuji, has some reflection? Let me flip the camera around and adjust the mic. So this is Ananta Gauranga Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you. You mentioned that we shouldn't see Vrindavan with our eyes, but with eyes of love. So, like you explained that Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena. So, can you elaborate a little more about that?
Yeah. So, I'm Ajnana Timirandasya. I'm blind. I can't see. So what are you saying, all this Premanjana stuff like that? How am I? It doesn't apply for me. But Jnananjana Salakaya. There's a Salakaya, it means a stick, of this Ayurvedic stick, which Gurudev is giving Jnana Anjana. It's the torchlight of knowledge that he's giving me, by which I can see. So that's Shastra Chakshush. We see through the eyes of Shastra, through the words of Gurudev, in the words of the 3rd canto of the Bhagavatam. That's Shruta Ikshita Pata. Shruta Ikshita. Ikshita means the eyes. Shruta, hearing. Shruta Ikshita Pata. It's the path, the pata, of seeing through the ears. So we develop that premanjana by hearing with a service mood. And therefore, Cheto Darpana Marjanam Bhava Mahadavadi Nirvapanam. In that first verse of Shikshastakam, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says Mahaprabhu has packed all the verses of Shikshastakam. It's kind of like a preview. Just like if you study writing, English writing, a good writer, in the beginning of the book, it's not always done, depending on the artistic expression. But sometimes classically, you'll give one sentence and summarize the entire book. Or the beginning of a chapter, you'll summarize the entire. And Kaviraj Goswami does this in Chaitanya Charitamrita. He gives one or two mula verses in the very beginning, which summarizes the entire chapter. And in the beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrita, in 12 verses, 14, he gives the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita packed up in a nutshell. So, I don't know why I got off on that tangent. But this prema, we see through this packed up message of Gurudev. And when we serve that message, by hearing it and then by repeating it, by hearing it and we regurgitate, it comes in the ears and then it goes into the heart. And then by coming back out of our mouth again, we regurgitate that we do that service, then it comes back into our ears and it goes back to our heart. But this time, something's changed, some quality of it. Shushu Shudadana Vasudeva Kata Ruchi. We get some ruchi because of Shushu, we've done the service of repeating that kirtan. We're doing that kirtan. What is that kirtan? As my grandmother sometimes would say, Hare Krishna. It's just some syllables coming to our lips. But when the gopis are doing kirtan, my God, they're directly seeing Krishna. But this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving us. This is what he's teaching us. And how can we come to that premanjana you're talking about? How can we see with those eyes of love? By rendering service, but not just any service. Vishrambena Guru Seva. As we were mentioning before, and the word Vishramba which appears in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, this is the third of the angas of bhakti. And the first is we take shelter of Gurudev, then we do bhajan in the order of Gurudev, and then we render service to Gurudev, Vishramba Seva. And the word Vishramba, to look back a little bit in some of our previous sessions, Vishramba means with respect. But Vishramba, according to Ujjvala Nilamani and Rupa Goswami, Vishramba is a synonym for pranaya, or when the lover and the beloved become one. So Vishramba Guru Seva means, on one level, means service with respect. But on another level, it means when we become one. And that oneness comes beginning with respect. When we serve with respect, Gurudev's service, his order. And as we do more and more of that service, and we become Vishramba with Gurudev. We understand the heart of Gurudev. And then comes that Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena. So it's not just seva, but it's Prema Seva. And what is that Prema Seva? It's not Prema Seva to Radha and Govinda. That's way beyond me. But it's service of love to my Gurudev in the beginning. And that, therefore, we have this book distribution. That's their heart. They love to do that. And if we also take that up in our mechanical, fumbling, bumbling kind of way, and I've even seen devotees going out in the street, and sometimes the young devotee men only want to hit up the girls, or sometimes they get really angry with somebody and they punch them in the nose or something. Our book distribution is not so pure, but if we continue that service, then we become purified. And because Gurudev loves that so much, I'm inspired to think of Vaisheshika every day. So somebody's here. Anybody else with any reflections? Okay, we have Govinda Vallabha. And just before Govinda Vallabha, Chaturika Saki says Dandavat Pranams, and Ujjvala Rasiga says not any service, but only Vishrambena Guru Seva. Yes. Okay. And here's Govinda Vallabha.
I have two reflections.
Okay.
One short one about the word Samsmriti. How you say that Nanda Maharaj was going on Samsmriti.
Yeah.
Just think about Sankirtan, like Kirtan, then Sankirtan, complete Kirtan, and then Smriti, like remembering, and Samsmriti, more wholesome remembering.
Oh, that's so nice.
I just felt like, is that Maybe, is that what it is?
Yeah, why not? Yes. Okay, so let me unpack that a little bit. That's really beautiful comment. Thank you. So, iti samsmiti samsmitya. We also say iti samsmiti samsmiti pranam sandara yam yam. Another, where there's a prayer, Raghunath Das Goswami offers to Srimati Radharani. Iti samsmiti samsmitya. So, smriti is one thing, remember, but what is samsmitya? Means complete remembrance. When I just can't think of anything else. Iti samsmitya samsmitya. This is complete. And as Govinda Vallabha is saying, that also, the word samyak. Sankirtan means samyak kirtan, according to Jiva Goswami. It means complete kirtan. And it's complete for different reasons. He says one reason is because it's done congregationally with many different persons. Therefore it's complete. But another meaning of samyak kirtan is kirtan done with love. That's real sankirtan. That's real samyak kirtan. So she's pointing out that samsmiti samsmitya here is being said that it means complete smriti. And so we could assign these two different meanings, I think, confidently, from Jiva Goswami's Bhakti Sandarbha. One meaning is it's samsmitya samsmit because all the Brijbasis are going mad and they're just thinking of Krishna over and over again. It's not just Nanda Maharaj alone. We're not alone. We want to be with the devotees and remember Krishna with the devotees. We want to remember Gurudev with the devotees. Iti samsmitya samsmitya. And another meaning is that it's samyak smriti because it's complete with love, with so much intense love. That's an awesome reflection. Thank you very much, Govinda Vallabha. Anybody else with anything? Maybe one more. You want to say something on Anapayani? Okay, we're going to switch. Oh, oops, she was already there. To the world famous Anapayani Radha from St. Petersburg.
Thank you so much for this class. At the beginning, I immediately remember my Guru Maharaj, he recently shared in the class how Niranjan Maharaj told me about speaking high things, like giving class, speaking about high topics, and he said the only way person can do that if he meditates on particular person who already realized this. And it's so nice when devotees do that, and I didn't think about that in connection with Uddhava and Krishna. How Uddhava, he was carrying that message and he was meditating on Krishna, and I was thinking how this is the way for us also, if we want to share to meditate on one particular person and to speak.
And how do we meditate? Iti samsmiti samsmiti.
How
It's
can we
always
do
a
this
blast.
only when we have love, otherwise we can't
This
remember.
is complicated. And another thing, you mentioned that only Nanda and Yashoda, they didn't believe that Krishna will come back, and that's why they required that message. And I was thinking, but gopis also, I think they didn't really.
Yes, the gopis also.
Gopis and but still at the same time, I remember this this explanation from Guru Maharaj, comparison with the turtles. So the hope of the turtles, and I was thinking if they have this turtle, those hopes, it means they believe that they will come. That's why kind of controversial thing. Can you explain?
Okay, great. Thank you. Great comment. Actually, this word utkanta is an important word. It's also used in Prema Vilas by Nityananda Das. There's a conversation between Narottam Das Thakur and what's his name? His guru, Lokanath Goswami. Thank you. And Lokanath Goswami speaks about the quality of a disciple. He uses the word utkanta, that he chants the kirtan the Gurudev gave him, but utkanta, in a very, very intense way. So the gopis and Nanda Maharaj, they're doing kirtan. And this kirtan is the kirtan of our Sampradaya. This is the kirtan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he's come to speak about. And this is the kirtan that Uddhava is going to hear, in the Brahma Gita, is hearing right now in the 46th chapter from Nanda Maharaj. It's their intensity. And that kirtan is full of contradictions. It's also very paradoxical. Because on one hand, they feel Krishna's not going to return. But if they totally felt that Krishna's not going to return, then they would just die. But that also happens. To say something which we probably shouldn't say what's going to disturb everybody's mind. But Rupa Goswami, in the 4th act of Lalita Madhav, he describes that Radharani commits suicide. She drowns herself in the Jamuna because Krishna's not returning. She feels that, and she doesn't really die. She has an eternal body, and it's better than Romeo and Juliet. There's a family reunion at the end. That's another story. But on one part, they feel that. It's a great contradiction. But on the other hand, there's a hope that Krishna said, Ayashya, just before he left. He promised he's going to return. So the gopis' lives are like that turtle. But again in Lalita Madhav, Radharani, she gives a message to a crow. And we spoke that verse quite a long time ago. Our Guru Maharaj sometimes speaks of that. She's telling that crow that you give this message to Matharesh. He's no longer Brajesh, but he's Matharesh now. He forgets about us. Now he's the Lord of Mathura. He's no longer the Lord of Vrindavan. You go and tell him that just as a householder has a responsibility when the building catches on fire, what's the first thing the householder does? Nowadays, they'll grab the television, or the computer actually. They'll grab the computer and run outside. And then after they put the computer outside, they'll go back and get the children. Right? But in Vedic culture, the first thing they do is they go and they unlock the doors for the animals. Because the animals can't get out. The children, they can get up and they can run outside the house. But the animals, they're locked in. So that's their duty of a Vedic householder. And so Radharani's message through this crow to Krishna was that Krishna's like that. Our bodies are lit on fire. He set our bodies on fire. And there's prana pashu. Pashu means the animal, that beast who's the beast of our life. That prana pashu is locked up in the body which is on fire. And so you should come and unlock the cage so that prana pashu, that beast of our life, can get outside of the burning house of our body. But what is the lock? The lock is your promise, Krishna. That you said you're going to return. That's the only thing which is keeping us alive. So it's very paradoxical. It's very contradictory. Two things in one. It's okay on the plane. Krishna Kuna, you're fidgeting. Do you have some shit that you want to share? Oh, okay. So, okay, we're going to go ahead and stop there. Today is Wednesday, right? I forget what day it is. And our next session will be on Friday. And I'm not sure, just looking a little ahead, we'll have a session, I think, on Friday and then on Sunday. And I'm not sure next week because we're leaving Mayapur on the...
You're leaving.
We're leaving Mayapur, coming up sometime next week or something like that. And I'm not sure how the classes are going to go after that point. Subal Sham Prabhu says, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nice to see you, Subal Sham Prabhu. And Zeke is here also, Zeke Berger. And Brajendra Kumar, pranams. So thank you all very much. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Go Premanande, Vancha Kalpa Drubhishcha.